get started. All right, so we're talking about Promise.all. So let's review some stuff. So a promise, who's got a good definition of a promise for me?
The async process for something that has yet to happen.
Async process for something that hasn't happened. Yeah, I don't mind that. What else? What else is a promise?
It'll tell you if
Confirmation.
it, yeah.
Sharon, then Blair.
It's just a confirmation that the HTTP request went through and that it will return something.
Yes. So I like will like eventually return. What I'll say is will eventually resolve is like the academic term. So like a synchronous function returns, a promise resolves, but otherwise you can think of them kind of similarly to a value. Now note, promises aren't just from HTTP requests. Calling fetch evaluates to a promise, but so does like accessing something in the file system, or like there's lots of other things that use promises too. Fetch requests are just like mostly what we're doing right now. Blair, what you got?
I was basically going to say that it'll tell you whether the request will eventually be completed or fail.
Ooh, I like that. Can complete or fail. Cool. I think between all those, that's pretty good. So we can think of promises as like little wrappers. So the value is inside here. The value is wrapped in a promise because it takes some amount of time. And then whenever that finishes up, then we can unwrap that value and it resolves to whatever the thing is. So then that value becomes the input to this one, becomes the input to that one, so on. Questions about promises in general before we do some Promise.all stuff?
I know we've been using them in fetch requests. Are they always required in those?
Nope. You use them every time that you need to do more than one asynchronous thing at the same time. So, for example, when we get a Pokemon, we get a list of URLs to the Pokemon's abilities, but we don't get the abilities themselves. So if they've got 5 abilities and we want to get all 5 of those, we could do them one after another. But that'd be a little bit tricky because we don't necessarily know how many of them there are ahead of time. So instead, we can put those in an array and then just request them all at the same time and then get all of their responses back at the same time.
Okay.
All right. Other questions about just promises? All right. Let's talk about Promise.all. Promise.all takes an array of promises promise 2, promise 3. And then this is like the key part of understanding Promise.all. Promise.all evaluates to a promise. That means we can do all of the normal things that we do promises with promises. We can .then, we can .catch, we can do whatever. And the resolved value of Promise.all is an array with value 1, value 2, value 3, like that. So what I want to do now is let's head over to Code Sandbox, and let's do like the simplest Promise.all that we can. So head on over to Code Sandbox. Let's do this with vanilla. And then delete all this. Don't need it. Okay, if you're caught up with me, give me a thumbs up. Blair's good. Sean's good. Sharon, how you doing?
Mine's just logging me in. It's real
Okay.
slow to log.
All right, let's just give it a sec then. So, what we're gonna do?
I'm good.
You're in? Excellent.
Mm.
So, we're gonna start by just making an array of promises. So, I'll give you the URL so you don't have to type it out. We'll call this base URL, and I'm going to do that. Okay, this is the base URL. I'm going to throw it in Zoom chat. So then we're going to make a Pikachu promise. And we're going to make that out of the base URL /Pokemon/Pikachu. Let's do a Charmander and a Bulbasaur. And we're going to, so those are the URLs. We're going to pass those into fetch, each of them. All right. Take a second to catch up. Your screen should look like mine.
Are those question marks after the Pikachu in purple and Charmander in purple? I can't read it.
Oh, sorry. Those are backticks. So,
Back to so.
like that. Yeah, come that.
Okay.
All right, give me a thumbs up if you're ready to move on. Sharon's a yes. Blair's a yes. Sean, let me know.
All right.
All right.
Got it.
So we have these 3 promises. We're going to put these in an array. We're going to call it Pokemon promises. And it's going to have the Pikachu promise, the Charmander promise, and the Bulbasaur promise. So yours should look like that. Cool. To do all of these at the same time, so we're not fetching them one after another. We're trying to send all 3 of them off at the same time. We call Promise.all. And we pass in Pokemon promises. Promise.all resolves to a promise. So we can call these like Pokemon resolutions. And if we log that, resolutions. Let's see what we get. Hey, there we go. We get an array with 3 HTTP responses because that's what a fetch resolves to, right? So we get the status code and we get all these kinds of things. So if we wanted to, we could take each of those and we could even just call Promise.all again on trying to resolve all of them. So we have that array. What if we did... Actually, hold on, pause there. Questions about anything I've done so far? All right.
Yeah, I actually do have a question. I'm getting a bunch of errors instead.
Why don't you take over the
Do
screen?
you have it as pokeapi.com?
No, it's .co.
Okay, that's what I did.
Why don't you screen share? There's more of you now.
I was intricately involved with Pokemon. I missed the ping.
Can you make your JavaScript area bigger? There you go. All right, so your problem is... Oh, you might not actually have one. Hit the no sign. It's kind of next to the filter thing. Yeah, clear that out, and then refresh the page. Yeah, you don't have an actual problem. It just keeps running it as you're typing, and so like all your syntax errors as you're typing end up showing up.
Okay, that makes sense because it kept saying a bunch of stuff. I'm like, but it is defined. I did do that.
Okay, so let's actually talk about some other ways that we could have gotten this far. So we could save all of these in variables and then put them in that way. That's fine. Also, the only thing that's different between any of these is like this part, right? So what if instead of declaring those like that, I just put those names in an array? Pikachu, Charmander, Bulbasaur. Okay, well, if I have this array of names, could I not turn that array of names into an array of fetch requests like this? Anybody brave enough to walk me through this? How would I do that?
I think you would have to. So just based on our Pikachu, Charmander, and Bulbasaur promises, we take it to base URL, add the / Pokemon, and then I think you.
Tell me what to type.
Okay, so how about const new base URL is equal to then I guess a string.
What string?
And then let's do the string of let's template literal the base URL.
Okay.
The original one. /Pokemon / and then for here is where we want to put a template literal for our elements within the array, right?
How do I do that?
So that would be $ curly brackets. And I guess if you wanted to do it for each, we'd probably have to make this into a function. But I guess maybe do name, and then we'll probably have to throw this into a function, right?
Maybe. We're on the right track. Kinda. So we will need to do something kinda like this. Like this part is right. It will go into a function, but even before any of that, what do I need? What am I doing? What's the name for this kind of transformation that I'm doing?
You're mapping over the names array.
Ding,
and then
ding, 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 ding. So if I
you're popping
map,
each name that new base URL thing.
yeah. So if I map over the names, that gives me each name. And then I can basically do this. Now, just as like a vocabulary thing, the base URL is the part of the URL that is like common to everything. And so this wouldn't really be a new base URL. This is really just the actual URL. It uses like the base URL and then adds these changing parts to it. So
could we technically go back up and add Pokemon to the base URL since that's consistent throughout?
Yeah, I guess we could. The reason why I didn't is we're probably like going to do characters or something like that that has a different endpoint than Pokemon.
Gotcha. Okay.
But good instinct. So, okay, that's pretty good. So now, what else do I need to do? I'm still not returning anything. Map always returns something.
Return URL.
Okay, so I've turned an array of names into an array of URLs. Yeah, I don't hate that. Oop. Oh, Oh no, oh no. I yelled at you guys about this. What am I doing?
You are defining a variable, then instantly returning it.
Yes. So what do I do?
Just return URL equals.
Yeah.
You want, I think. Oh, okay, that too.
Well, just like this. I don't need
Yeah.
that URL equals. I don't need to save it into anything.
Huh?
And really, since it's just one line like that, cool. So now I've turned an array of names into an array of URLs. What do I want to do with those URLs?
Map them and
Sure.
fetch each one.
Love it. For each URL, fetch it. Pretty cool. Also, this was like the pretty advanced thing from the refactoring lesson. How can I make this even tighter?
You could put dot then right after the close parentheses of URL, right?
I absolutely could, and we're going to do that in a sec. But
Okay.
just this line of code, what's another way I could rewrite this exact same thing?
Could you get rid of the first URL and the fat arrow so it's just dot map parentheses fetch URL?
Even better than that, I really could just do that.
Because it already knows that it's fetching a URL.
Yeah, well, fetch is a function definition. Oh, it doesn't like me doing it that way.
If it's a function definition, do you need to put parameters like the open close parentheses right next to fetch or no?
No, because that'll invoke it. I don't want a function
Right.
invocation. I want a function definition.
Gotcha.
All right. Oh, because map already has the index. Never mind. I can't do that. I do have to keep it that way.
Right.
Okay. So now I've turned names in a list of names into a list of URLs into a list of fetch requests. Hey, wait a minute. Isn't that, if I have an array of these fetch things, that's an array of promises. Isn't that an array of promises? So, what if I map over that again, and this is going to be a list of responses. Can I console log that? Or no, it's going to be a list of requests. I take that back. So now, what I could do with these requests, that's identical to like this, right? This and this are the exact same thing. We just got a little bit fancier. So I could, actually, I'm going to not chain off of that. I'm going to say const requests equals that. So really, requests is the same thing as Pokemon promises. Well, hey, wait a minute. If it's the same thing as Pokemon promises, can I treat it the same way? Promise.all the requests. Take the resolutions and log them. So if I clear that out and refresh, hey, what do you know? 3 responses back. Take a second and just look at that. This and this are the same. Turned a list of names into a list of URLs, into a list of fetches. We could have also done this if we took in the name instead. We could have just done all this in here too. I don't know that I have a strong preference for one over the other. But that also works. That's the same thing. Ask me some questions about this.
So our big ticket here, I mean, the whole reason why we would try to be putting anything into this kind of a fetch request is so that we can reorganize this kind of information, right? So if we're trying to draw out their abilities, now it's all going to just be right here for these 3 Pokemon.
So with these, I have to like write these 3 separate statements, which also like, and then I have to manually put them into the array. I have to know exactly which ones we're doing here. With these, the only thing that I have to know ahead of time is this one array. Everything else is just programmatic. So if I could get this array some other way, all this logic stays the same. For example, to add Mewtwo, done. Versus over here, I need to save a new variable. And manually add it into the array. And then this part stays the same. All of this will work with any array of strings. And there's a lot of ways we can get arrays of strings. For example, pulling them out of an API response.
What if you didn't use Promise.all? Would you still return the same thing?
So if I didn't do Promise.all, I got some trouble because this is an array of promises. Well, I can't call .then on an array of promises. I'd have to do it on each one. And so actually, let's play with that a little bit because I think it illustrates why Promise.all is cool. So let's say I wasn't using Promise.all. That would be more like requests.forEach for each request, I want to .then and then take the response and then and then call JSON to parse it, and then take the parsed response and log it. And let's see, I'm going to comment those out real quick. Oops. Let me actually. Didn't like something that got back in that.
mu2 is spelled wrong.
Oh, you are correct.
Yeah, like mu number 2.
Hey, there we go. So that basically does the same thing, eaching through these. Now the problem is that I'm doing this whole chain for every single one of these things. I never get all of the responses back at the same time, so I can't work with them together. But this is effectively doing the same thing. The difference is that I have a whole bunch of promises, and for each splits those up into completely independent chains. Dot then, dot then, dot then. Every iteration of that for each has a totally separate promise chain to it. So what we want to do instead is take all of those different promises, and Promise.all like brings them back together. So now it's one promise chain again. Like that. That's Promise.all. That's for each.
Is that like an example of sequential execution versus parallel execution?
You know, that's a good question. It wouldn't actually be sequential. It would still be parallel. And the reason why is, all right, it fires off this request. But then, like, once you dot then, it moves on to the next iteration and fires off that request. And then it probably checks to see if the first one is back yet. And then it does this one. And then it checks to see if either of these two are back yet. And then it does this one. So it probably is still doing all those concurrently, but in a way harder to follow way. So eaching over a bunch of fetch requests and then resolving them and then doing something with them. We could do it like that. But then anything that depends on this, we just need to write that whole then chain out every time. That kind of sucks. Versus that. Actually, more specifically, that. Take that array and rather than, go ahead.
So with Promise.all, if one item doesn't return, nothing's going to return. But with the
Correct.
for each, okay, the for each will return what it can.
Exactly.
Okay.
So this then doesn't fire until every one of these promises is resolved. If one of them is super slow, then the entire then is going to wait for the last one to be done. And if any one of them throws an error, one catch block is going to fire. That's another big difference. So if there's a problem with these and you have a catch handler, if one of them has a problem with for each, that one gets its catch handler, but none of the other ones do. With this one, if any one of them has a problem, the one catch handler fires. You could probably make an argument for like, there's times where you might want to do one or the other. That's cleaner though. More questions? All right, take a second to get caught up. You should have all this stuff. I don't care about the rest of it. I'll give you a couple minutes. Let me get some water. Nice.
Right now I'm left with the wild and I'm trying to get to the Promise.all.
All right, so what's kind of cool about this, like another cool thing about promises, is that a chain of promises is also a promise. So if Promise.all is looking for an array of promises, well, we can map over these names and turn them into fetch requests. Since we have to resolve every one of them anyway, we could either take this like Promise.all here and then take all the like resolutions from that and then make another set of promises here. So that would be something like parsed body promises equals Pokemon resolutions dot map Pokemon resolution and then return Pokemon resolution dot JSON. And then we could return another Promise.all. So we can do something like that. Then dot then. These are the body resolutions. Log them. All right, did that work? There we go. Hey, look, it's those objects. So that's one way to do it. We turn the names, we map them into fetch requests, we Promise.all the fetch requests, we take the HTTP responses that we get back, and then we map over those and turn them into resolved parsed HTTP requests, and then Promise.all those again, and then we get all the body resolutions. So that'd be one way to do it. A way better way to do it is, since any part of a promise, any segment of it is also a promise. So like, that's a promise, but so is this, and so is this. Any combination of these are also promises. So why don't we just do all that right here? Dot then response response.json. And now we can eliminate this entire step. Does the exact same thing. Because this little chain here is a promise. We still turned a name into a promise and then called it with, passed it into Promise.all. Ask me some questions about that.
It's going to take me a while to wrap my head around it before I can ask any questions.
Well, let's just sit with it for a sec.
Okay.
Because I don't think you're the only one. And this is about as heady as it gets with JavaScript. We have an array of strings. That gets turned into an array of requests. We do all of the requests at the same time. We take all of their parsed bodies, because each of them went through that, and then log them. Might be easier to think of this as responses. Oops. We'll call that parsed responses. This is raw responses, or raw response.
So it's like we're basically taking the entire list of Pokemon. We hard coded 4 names of Pokemon, and so based on those names, we mapped out into its own array just these 4 Pokemon, and then from that we asked the computer to return the value of just those 4 Pokemon into their own separate objects. And so once we did that, we just console logged the response of that. So we just basically just console log like those 4 profiles, and that's it.
Yep.
Call them profiles, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
These objects. Okay. I got it. So instead of writing like 4 fetches, Promise.all just did it all at once.
Right. It's still 4 fetches, but Promise.all did them all at the same time, and it waits for all of them to be done, and then it puts their responses together in one array.
In one array.
That's this part. It fired off all 4 of them and then just jammed their responses all together into one thing.
So Promise.all has 2. So you're telling me that Promise.all has 2 functions then? Is that it fires off fetch requests and then it also combines the results of those fetch requests into one array?
Yep.
Or is it just okay? Okay, because I thought it just took the result of map and then just it fetched the 4 Pokemon and then it just took the result of the map and put it into an array. I didn't know that it did that.
Yeah, it's whatever this resolved value is. So the resolved value of this promise is the parsed response.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we get, an array of those back from that.
Okay. So it doesn't do it again, correct? It doesn't do another. Okay, got it. I know that's like stupid to ask.
Not at all.
Just want to make sure.
This is as hard as it gets with JavaScript.
Okay. Thanks, Kyle.
Yep. If you can handle like this concurrent async code stuff with JavaScript, there is nothing in this language you can't do. This is the top of the mountain.
So Kyle, I am trying to kind of just follow along with you here, but it seems like I must have made a mistake along the way. Could we take a quick peek at it?
Please.
Sweet. All right. So looking here, I did break this up a little bit so that it was easier for reading.
Refresh that real quick. Your syntax is a little weird. Go ahead and save that file. It'll fix it for you. Okay, so you're taking an array of strings. You're mapping over those. Oop, I see it. So see how name is gray? What does that mean?
Means that this particular the variable isn't getting used.
Yep. So, oh, but it looks like you're trying to use something. There we go. There we go. Hey, and there's our 3 objects.
Okay, cool.
Beautiful.
All right, sweet. So the real question that I had with this is, obviously this is a real powerful tool. We have a bunch of fetches that is now all in one object. What's the next step after that? You know, like,
Sure.
Okay, we have these things. What can I do with these things now?
So, here's where here's what the end game is on this. Oops, no. There we go. Okay, so I hard coded these names in. What if so how do I do something where I don't hard code those names in? For example, like if I actually just made a request to the Pokemon list, that would be something like fetch base URL / just Pokemon. So that's going to give me the list of Pokemon. Oops. One line that. Response.json. All right. So the thing that I get back from that looks like this. And hey, we should be real familiar with this one by now. So in that results array, I get all these objects. Uh-oh, problem is I really don't get any of the details about all of these 20 Pokemon. I do get a whole bunch of URLs though. Huh. So maybe I could take Pokemon list is response.results. I wonder, response.results. Nope. So if I take that Pokemon list and I have an array of Pokemon, could I not map over that? And for each Pokemon object, turn that into fetch Pokemon.url. And then take the raw response from that and parse it. Oh, I'm not doing anything with it. That's why it's not doing anything. And then take the responses, plural, that I get back from that, and then log them. Hey, there they are. Oh, but they need to be requests, and then whole point of the lesson, I got to promise.all them. Hey, ooh, I saw it. Took a while. Wait for it. There it is.
Okay.
Hey, look, that's a whole array of Pokemon. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. Compare this to this. Real damn similar. Really, if I started with these names being the URLs, it'd probably be pretty much the same. So if that became Pikachu, Charmander, Bulbasaur, and then instead of this being names, this is URLs. URL, URL. If I called this URLs, we'll like map those out. And all of these are URLs. That's URLs. That's a URL. Oops. That's a URL. Okay, try to make these as close to the same as possible. That and that are the same. Promise.all. Promise.all. And that console log there. Console log there. The difference is that with this one, I hard-coded the URLs. And for this one, I pulled it out of a different fetch request that I made. That's where this gets powerful. Because think about what's happening with that. give me a list of Pokemon. When you get the list of Pokemon, all you have is like the URLs. So it's really a list of Pokemon URLs. And then the next step is for each URL, fetch it. That's why this has to be in a couple steps. This gave us this list of URLs, and then we had to turn each of those URLs into their own fetch requests, and then we used Promise.all to do them all at the same time. Because otherwise, each one takes, I don't know, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. You have 20 Pokemon, and you did them one after the other. All right, well, that's like a minute. You had 50, like you have to do in the Pokemon assignment? Get out of here. Ask me some questions.
I think this is this is actually what I was working on right before I joined, and why I was a little late. But I got it easily for each Pokemon, right? The Promise.all to pull for each Pokemon was nice and easy. It was that the abilities were like super buried. So
Sure.
like it was an object within an object within an object. So
Sure.
I finally figured it out. Not nearly as fast as we figured out here, but I was console logging the whole way down to see how to get in there.
Sure.
And I think I really got an idea of how Promise.all works once I got to the data itself, and I was able to get the URL. I was like, oh, and now I need to map it and then fetch each one and then Promise.all.
Ding, ding, ding.
But,
so yeah, let's say, so for those abilities, so these responses are really Pokemon. So let's name it right. Okay, so we've got this big list of Pokemon. Oh no, but we need their abilities. So we need to do something like abilities URLs is this big list of Pokemon. We want to transform it. So that's a map. I want to turn an array of Pokemon into an array of abilities URLs. So that would be something like, well, we got to find out where it is. Okay, abilities, ability. Oh man, oh that's tricky.
Oh, I've got a great bit of JavaScript puffery if you want to look at this exact problem.
Give me just a sec. So, oh man, you need to like map within a map on this. They really didn't do you a lot of favors.
This is what took me all day today was figuring out that.
Totally.
And then I think at one point you get an array of arrays.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, it took me like half an hour, me and Amp bumping our heads together to just think of flat. It was borderline embarrassing.
So, all right. So I have these Pokemon. For each Pokemon, I want to get those ability URLs. So that's going to mean I need to take the Pokemon dot abilities, which is an array, and then I want to map that array into ability.url. Man, I'm just torturous. All right, so yeah, if I do that, that'll all work, but I need to, well, let's see what we get back from that, because it's pretty much what you were just talking about. Wait for the fetch to resolve. Cons. What did I do wrong here? I'm assuming I spelled something wrong. Wait for that to come back. Maybe. Refresh. Oh, here we go. An array of arrays, and I did not get the thing that I wanted out. Oh, it's ability.ability.url. This is the crappiest API design. All right, let's see what this is. An array of arrays. Hey, but I have URLs out of them. So what I want to do there is I want to flat map these. So I think it's this one. That's going to take that array of arrays and just put it all in one array. Actually, I think I need to flat map both of them. It doesn't hurt anything to flat map something if it's not nested anyway. Hey, look at that. Now it's an array of URLs. Imagine there might be some duplicates in there too. So what can I do to get rid of duplicates in an array?
Filter. Beyonce number 21.
Okay.
Reduce.
Okay.
Reduce would work. It's trickier though. The magic word starts with an S.
Slice.
3 letters.
No.
Set.
Yes. So easiest way to just get the unique values in a list is to make a new set and then spread the, no, I don't need to spread anything. Oops, I remember what I need to spread now. You need to put that into an array because a set is not an array. It's just kind of like one. And then spread that in. And so then if I log the unique abilities URLs, let's see if that got rid of any duplicates. It was 43 and it didn't like my syntax on something. Maybe this needed to be, oh yeah, so I'm using the new keyword. It needs to be in parentheses. All right, let's try that again. Now there's only 18 in there, down from 43. Hot damn. It's super hacky. There's no reason you need to be able to follow the code on this. And you can look it up. Like if you go like use set to make unique array JS. Hey, what do you know? Exact same thing. It's a hack, but it's a really concise one. Okay, so we have a list of unique URLs. Well, shit. We already figured out, like, what to do with all of that. You can just copy this exact same code. Unique abilities URLs. And then if I then off of that, this should give me abilities. And if I log those, let's see what happens. Got something back. Hey, that looks like 18 different abilities things. Now, here's the tricky thing, and this is the hardest part of this entire assignment. It's the hardest thing that we do in JavaScript. This is nested promises. So the problem is that I have abilities over here, and I have the list of Pokemon over here, but these are two totally different scopes. I have access to abilities over here. I have access to the Pokemon list over here, but I don't have access to both of them in either of these. The trick is to do this whole dot then there instead. Now I've got the Pokemon list and the abilities in scope. Refresh that. Suppose that technically doesn't need to return. There it is. Oop. There it was. I saw it.
It ran away.
It ran away. A little peekaboo. There we go. There's a bunch of Pokemon. There's a bunch of abilities.
Can you run that back? How did you get it in the same scope?
All I did was take that and move this whole dot then to the end of Promise.all instead. Because this creates this nested scope. Well, an inner scope can see outer scopes. So it's not chaining, it's nesting.
And then in there, since you have, since the Pokemon and the abilities are in scope, you could technically create your spans and your ability. Oh my, I was about to do some absolute fuckery with the functions and all this sort of stuff all over the place, and it was simply just moving the dot then. Okay,
yep.
Wow.
Make the dot then nest instead of chaining. That makes the scope bigger. All this stuff in here can see that and that because it's looking up. Inside scopes can see outside scopes. This scope can't see this scope, but this scope can see this scope. Nesting. Questions?
Could you display some of these abilities to the screen to just kind of
Sure.
emphasize how it is that after we do our Promise.all that we can really utilize it?
Sure. So, what do I have? App. Okay, so I've got this reference to app here. I can set apps. Oh, shoot, how do I want to do this? Inner HTML. To something like, if I did like ability names. That's abilities dot map. Take every ability, get its name, and then, I don't know, join it into just one long string. And then set the inner HTML to ability names. And then I could do something similar with Pokemon names. Oops, not abilities. Pokemon list. Maybe something like that. And maybe this goes in p tag, and so does this. And all these have names, right? I think they do. Yep, there's a name there. And name there. Perfect. Missing argument 0 when calling function name prototype map. On line 24, Pokemon list, which is up here, maps through each Pokemon, returning their name, and then joining them. Why is that not working? I feel like that should be working. I'm going to refresh.
Is it missing a closed parentheses after dot map? Or no, I think you had it there, yeah.
Yeah,
Never
it's
mind.
there. Let's try just refreshing this. I think I got it right. Just wait for it to download half the internet. Oh, wait a minute. I think I wrote inner HTML wrong. That's probably the problem. Yep. That is, in fact, an issue. End of the day for all of us.
HTML needs to be capital.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, what do you know? There they are. And so what you could do is like take all those abilities, and for each Pokemon's ability, you have the name and the URL, Well, now that you have the full list of abilities, you can use like find to find the ability with that name.
Or you could even do a for each. So for each Pokemon, then display Pokemon and their ability.
Totally.
Whatever, what have you.
Exactly. Pretty cool.
Very cool.
All right, we went into study hall by 50 minutes. Any last questions before I try to knock out questions from anybody who was patient enough to sit through this?
This has made Promise.all a lot clearer, so I appreciate it.
Hey, that's all I ever wanted to hear. All right, I'm going to stop the recording there.